Hi you guys, how you doing? It's Orlando City UK here today, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by some very familiar faces. It's my pleasure to welcome Eddie Cruz from Orlando Lions Den podcast, Gavin Rushnell from Lionsblog, and Dan Berridge from the English Lion to the show today. How you doing, guys?
Great,
doing very well.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. It's the feel good times are back at the moment. We're going to call this the MLS is back Group A winners chat today. We're going to reflect on Orlando City's 3 fixtures so far and how we see the rest of the tournament going. So I've got a few questions for the guys today. We're going to go one by one. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So question 1 for you guys, and let's start with Eddie at Orlando Lions Den. So as supporters, are we right to be getting carried away so far? I mean, this tournament's been an absolute dream from an Orlando perspective. Or did we put 2 poor teams in Inter Miami and NYCFC? Where's the balance? Should we be getting carried away?
There's a balance, but it's not what you necessarily think. I think we should be getting carried away because people say, well, we've started better before. We've had this streak before, and then things went poorly. So that's why you should get carried away. We don't know if it's going to turn poor, so enjoy the moment. This is 2020. This year is crazy, so enjoy positive moments. And with that being said, I think there's enough that we've seen a style of play and just certain attributes, mentality that seems evident, right, that you would hope would not fall off, plus a new coach. So, but obviously, if you're an Orlando fan, you're going to have in the back of your mind that, look, I've seen this before, and that's part of being an Orlando fandom. Is you're ready for pain. But when there's joy, you got to embrace it. It might not be permanent, so enjoy it, hug it, embrace it.
Absolutely. I mean, I had to do the Michael Scott meme heading into the tournament. I'm ready to again, but we've tipped the balance, so it's been brilliant so far. What about you, Gavin? Should we be getting carried away, or
I
feet on the ground?
I think I have to agree with Eddie a little bit. We've not seen this before, in my opinion. So you say we've seen this before with the 6-game win streak, start of 2018. But how many of those games did we fluke a win in? You remember the New York Red Bulls game, 4-3.
Yeah.
The comeback. Who was that against? Portland, I believe, 3-2. We scored 3 goals in the last couple seconds. I mean, we were not a better team. All the stats were saying we were not being the better team on the day. We were just kind of grinding out those results, winning on the fine margins. These 3 games, we've been the better team in all 3, in my opinion, including the Philadelphia match. We created the better chances. So I think that we're taking a step in the right direction. So be excited.
Cool. Absolutely. Dan, I suppose you're going to echo those thoughts. How have you seen it so far? Should we be getting carried away? Absolutely, right?
Definitely. I think Eddie summed it up pretty nicely there, actually. But I think this feels different because there's a more of a cohesion. There's defensive solidarity. We're seeing a clear identity of how the team want to play. Like we can mix it up. We can play between the lines. We can go out wide. There's against Philadelphia the other day. In particular, I love the way we were overloading the box. There's a very clear vision. So it's like we're not getting carried away, but there are a lot of positive signs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like I said at the top of the show, it's been a dream from a biased Orlando City supporters perspective so far. Miami going out, Atlanta going out last night. I watched the Brad Guzan and Frank de Boer meltdown in the press conference. That was amazing. That was brilliant. So
I've yet to watch that. I'm saving it.
It's a good watch. It's a good watch from an Orlando fan's point of view. So you touched on it there, but I want to dig a bit deeper now. Sum up the biggest difference for you watching Oscar Pareja's Orlando City in the 5 games so far this year versus Lions teams of previous seasons. Gavin, how about you? What's the biggest noticeable difference for you as a supporter and a viewer?
We talked about it last night on the Lionsblog podcast. It's the technical ability in the squad for me, and it's when we do get possession, we look dangerous with it every single time we get the ball. With James O'Connor, it was kind of, we created chances, but it wasn't out of our possession per se. It was kind of individual skill with Nani, or long balls and getting over the top with Benji or something like that. Every time we get the ball, we look like we have a plan. and we looked dangerous with it. And again, with the build-up plays, you saw Mauricio Pereira playing a 1-2 with Juan up the right side for both the build-up plays. That looked really, really, really impressive. One of them turns into a goal. The other one, Juan doesn't do so well on. So for me, it's just how potent we look when we have the ball in possession.
Yeah, well said, well said. Dan, what's the biggest difference for you? We've obviously sat there in the UK for years after hours and kind of watched really feeble attempts at, what's the biggest difference for you?
For me, the biggest difference, particularly on last season, is I think last season a lot of the time we saw an over-reliance on Nani. I mean, 12 goals, 10 assists. But I think teams, particularly towards the end of the season, worked out that if you shut Nani down, you shut Orlando down, and that just isn't the case anymore. I mean, I think I wrote in my review of the game against Philadelphia, I thought Nani was particularly poor by his high standards. I mean, I think off the top of my head, 64% pass completion rate, which is really low for a player of his standard, which he's going to get every now and then. But then you saw the likes of Mauricio Pereira step up, Chris Mueller, not so much against Philadelphia, but in the two previous games, he really brought it to the table. So for me, that's the biggest difference. There are more options, whereas before it was kind of just give the ball to Nani and hope he works his magic.
Definitely. Eddie, how have you seen the 3 games so far? What's the biggest difference for you as the viewer and supporter?
I think there has been a stark difference. And what I meant earlier, that we've seen this before, we've seen winning, but we haven't seen winning this way, like Gavin talked about. If you're just going to be a kind of casual fan and say, oh, I've seen this before, blah, 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 I want to be a cynic, then fine. If you watch the matches, you can see there's a difference. The thing that really stands out to me is there seems to be a buy-in from the whole team. I think the mentality is there. I think we had some hairy moments, but I thought we saw the games through a little better. I didn't feel nervous when we were behind. I felt like Oscar would make a good sub or change the game plan in the match, like he had to do when Urso came out. It was obviously a big part of the game plan. We had to adjust, and we still created chances. We created chances when Mueller and Nani were fairly quiet. And if you look, if you look at the way the matches are going and the flow of things, that's not an accident. People are where they're supposed to be and are looking where they're supposed to be. And then when they look that way, the people are there. Where I felt like with last year, previous teams, people didn't know what to do next, where to go next, or what's the next play, especially when we were in the final third. There wasn't numbers. They had to pick their head up, wait. There wasn't options. Look at the goal against Philadelphia. There was a ton of options there. 2 guys at the top of the box for a pullback and 3 guys making a run in the 6-yard box. That's the difference I see. Cohesion, game plan, buy-in, mentality.
Definitely. I think you all make really good points there. I mean, reflecting on it for me, we're just not giving ourselves, we're not shooting ourselves in the foot. We're not giving ourselves a mountain to climb early on now. I remember a Montreal Impact game last season, the famous Shane O'Neill messing up. We're not doing things like that anymore. The team does seem regimented tactically. They seem organized. And you speak about an Oscar Pareja team, they're hard to beat. That's what everyone says from his time at Dallas. I think, it's early on, but we're seeing signs of that. So I think it's very encouraging so far.
Yeah.
Now, I want to move on to kind of your mindset heading into the tournament. We did a poll at Orlando City, UK. I think there was about 200 or so fans in it. And it was very split. I had 4 options, whether we were going to blitz the group, whether we were going to kind of be the runner-up, whether we were going to be one of those 4 third-blessed sides. But be honest, guys, and I want Dan to start at the English Lion. Did you think we'd make it out of the group? Is this unexpected where we're at?
No, I was pretty confident. I didn't think it would go as well as what it has done. I mean, obviously the group looks a lot different now to what it did going into the tournament, going from 6 teams down to 4. I always felt like we had a good chance of getting at least that best 3rd place finish. I think I saw enough in the games against Real Salt Lake and Colorado to think, I know, albeit they were so long ago, but in my mind, they've had enough time to work together on, not necessarily on the field, but I think with Florida's kind of COVID-19 rules being so lax, I think they've definitely benefited from that because they could get on the field earlier. They'll have been speaking during that time off as well. So I was confident that we would at least get top three. But then once Dallas came out and then Nashville soon after, I was like, yeah, we've got a real chance here.
Mm-hmm. Gavin, what about you? Whether it was a 6 or a 4-team group, did you see Orlando City making it out?
So when we originally had to play, Nashville instead of Philadelphia, I'm going to hold my hands up and say, I think we get second. All 3 of those games are winnable, but I just didn't see us coming out with the results. Then when we had to play Philadelphia, it was like, ooh, maybe we could I personally, as much as I love the team, I love everything about us, and I love the direction we're taking. Going into it, maybe it's just my OC PTSD, but I didn't see us winning the Miami game. I thought NYCFC would give us trouble, and to be fair, they did. And then Philadelphia, I thought they were going to be the hardest team to play in the group, which they were. So my prediction was second or third. No way did I think we were going to top this group.
Yeah. Awesome. What about you, Eddie? Did you see us making it out, or are we kind of surpassing expectations or on track?
I got us to second or third. I thought definitely we'd be at least third. We'd be second with about 5 to 7 points, and then that should have done the trick. I thought when Philadelphia became our matchup that, okay, wait a second, let's get out. Let's get some points on the board first, because this could be, treacherous. And then, but like Dan said, reducing the amount of people in the tournament increased, did help as well. So I thought we'd get out of the group, but I didn't think we'd look like this. I didn't think we'd have 7 points. I didn't think we'd win the group. The only person I know who did that was Alex Brown, who said we might get 9 points, and we all laughed at him summarily.
Only 2 points out in the end, yeah.
Yeah, it very easily could have gotten a crossbar away from Andre Blake, a super performance from 9 points.
Yeah, for me, looking back on the 3 games, watching those 90 minutes again, I think the manner of how we beat Inter Miami, the fact it was Inter Miami, I think psychologically, even though they are Miami, they're not still waiting for their first win in Major League Soccer, but because it was them, because there was a lot of pressure on, succeeding in our home market, I think the manner of that win really propelled us, certainly with the New York City FC start. Looking back, Jay Chapman put one probably about that much over Galese's bar just before Nani got the winner. And looking back, that was a big moment in the group. But moving forward, this kind of ties into the last question, but I'm eager to get your thoughts on this. So we don't know who we're going to be playing yet. It's looking likely that it could be Montreal Impact or Cincinnati. We'll have to see how or the Red Bulls. We'll have to see how the groups shake out, obviously tonight and this week. But if Orlando City are eliminated in the round of 16, could you say the tournament's been a success? Let's start with you, Eddie.
Sorry. It depends on how, I guess, we're eliminated. We've exceeded expectations already, to be honest, for what I thought. So if it's just a match where we're in it, where we play better and have some bad luck, which happens in football. Sometimes you're the better side and it just doesn't pan out. Only then, but I think we could get past this round. I think we get to semis. Saying we're going to win it, that's I have faith, but that's a lot to say. So based on how we play, if we get eliminated, but we're still playing the way we've been playing, we're still imposing a will, we're still playing well, we're still organized, then I'm not going to be that down.
Mm-hmm. Dan, what about you? Would it be a success if we go out of the next round? Would it be progression?
Yeah, I think you have to consider it at least a partial success, just because of obviously the group games counting towards the regular season. Like, it's put us third in the Eastern Conference at the minute, which is a decent start. So I think from that point of view, you have to at least consider it a little bit of a success. For me, from now on in, the rest of the tournament's a free hit. I don't really have any particular expectations. I think, like Eddie said, I think we could maybe get to the semis. Anything beyond that, I think is stretching it a little bit, but it's tournament football. Anything can happen, can't it? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's definitely got to be considered at least a partial success, just for the regular season points, if anything else.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a strange comparison, but it's certainly how I felt and how maybe you felt as well, Dan. But kind of, this is tournament football. I'm kind of like comparing it to England in the last World Cup, where we've got good pieces, but we've had, no real success on the international stage. And I'm hoping Orlando can kind of ride that wave, going forward in this, obviously within Orlando. What about you, Gavin? could we call the tournament a success if we lose out in the next round, the round of 16?
It's a hard one, right? Because going into the tournament, getting first in the group, that's instantly a success. Beating Inter Miami, winning that first game against our rivals, that can be seen as a success. But after seeing how we've played, if we lose against Montreal Impact, even if it is the ball doesn't fall our way, maybe we get some rough refereeing decisions, that's got to be seen as a disappointment after what we've seen from these boys these first 3 matches. I think Philadelphia are a more tactically smart team than Thierry Henry's Montreal Impact. And Montreal got 3rd in their group for a reason, and they only won 1-0 against probably the worst DC United side I've seen since they got Wayne Rooney. So we have to be considered favorites in that game, and if we do go out, I would be very disappointed in the team.
I mean, I've got to admit, like, I'm looking at who we could face next. Like, there's a crazy algorithm behind it. It's looking like it's going to be Montreal Impact from what I understand. And I think that's a favourable matchup. I did watch that game like you last night, Gavin, against DC, and DC were really poor. They were playing without, they were playing Ulysses Segura as a false 9, and they were really, really poor. Montreal sat on an early lead. I think that's a favourable game on paper. Obviously, we know this is Major League Soccer, but you raised some good points there. Now, moving on, I want to talk personnel. Obviously, we know who scored the goals for Orlando City so far, but Eddie, standout player for you. Who's your standout player for Orlando City? And 2, maybe what about a player that's taken you by surprise so far?
You know, the standout player, I'm going to go with Gallese. You know, that's just to help bolster like my second part, I guess, or to separate the two, right? I thought he'd be good, right? But you're just always nervous. It's a new league and stuff like that. But he's been stellar, and I think the defense has benefited from it. You know, he can organize the defense. Organizing a defense on the international matches is something that you don't have a lot of time to work on, right? Sometimes you get a new center back pairing. So the fact that he can be efficient in tournaments and like he did in the Copa America King is an asset, and I think it'll be an asset going forward too. But then the second part, I'm going to say Chris Mueller, because Mueller has done really well this season, but he's been in a bit of an enigmatic kind of player, right? He starts off hot, and it's kind of been like the way how Mueller goes, the team goes almost. We start off hot sometimes. He starts off hot, and then he has his summer doldrums, and the club did too. So I didn't expect this. Not that I didn't expect a hot start, but just the way he's been playing smarter. His runs, his position, his passing accuracy. He's been a threat. I like the way they use him. I like the freedom that he's playing with. It reminds me like the way Arsene Wenger used to have his players. He used to just like express themselves, out there. And I think Pareja's kind of doing that with Mueller. So I've been impressed. And before I was always like sub or not sub, and maybe his potential is a little bit overhyped because the fan base likes his personality. But I'm buying in more that there's truly potentially a star player in there.
Definitely. I mean, his composure for the second goal against NYCFC was very impressive. It was a very impressive team start in that game. But Gavin, what about you? Standout player so far for OC, and maybe who's a potential surprise package or someone who's performed above your expectations?
Standout player, this might come as a bit of a surprise, is Yuri Rosell. I'm actually drafting up an article for Lionsblog.org right now about just how he's been our underrated cog to this team. Yeah. When me and Daniel, my co-host, we went to the Montreal preseason game, and Yuri Rosell started alongside Urso, and he was very, very impressive in that game. And I remember talking to Daniel about it and just being like, this looks like this is what we're going to see moving forward. And then Yuri Rosell gets dropped for the first 2 games. We're like, wait, what? This isn't what we were expecting. And Mendes did have 2 very good games there. Turns out Rosell's injured. Come back in and Rosell's starting. Just the defensive positioning, the quality on the ball, the wherewithal to just get the ball turned and find a pass for us. He has been so good in that element of our game. And so standout player, Rosell, because we all knew he had it in him, I think. He just wasn't used correctly, and now he finally is. In terms of surprise player, Tesho Akandele off the bench. The first 2 games of the season were pretty underwhelming from him, I think, being the starter. And we just didn't see a lot out of him. And then coming off the bench against Inter Miami, he was everywhere, and he impressed me a lot, and that was a surprise. And then against NYCFC, comes off the bench and does really well again, gets a goal off of the save off of Sean Johnson. And then the third game, he was pretty average against Philadelphia, but I think that's more to do with Philadelphia just being a very good defense. And honestly, he could have had a goal if Nani made the right decision to pass the ball to him on the top of the box. So Tesho Akandele for me is the surprise player.
Nice. I like the take on Rosell there as well, because everyone does their best starting 11s before a season takes place. Obviously, Sebas Mendes had a solid first season, and him and Urso were my starting 2. But I like that Rosell's playing for his place now, and I think he's performed very very well so far in the shorts we saw against Philly on Mondays. So what about you, Dan? Standout and someone who's taken you by surprise.
I think first, in terms of a standout, Mauricio Pereira for me. I'm kind of getting the same sort of feeling I got from the fan base with Antonio Notarino, in terms of I don't think people necessarily not understand his importance, but like what in terms of what you see him doing off the ball. Yes, he only got his first goal the other day, but in terms of the way he plays between the lines, he's always available for a pass. He pivots well. He's got excellent ball control. He can shoot with both feet. He's disciplined as well. Like he's not just the sort of player who will just stay up the field. He can come back, track back, cover where he's needed to. And I was really pleased for him when he finally got on the score sheet the other day, because I think that goal actually summed him up a little bit as well. It was a little give and go, and then he's seen the space between the 2 defenders. And just darted it, because he knows Nani's going to put that ball on a sixpence for him. So, in terms of a standout, definitely Mauricio Pereira. You might laugh at my surprise.
Go on.
I'm actually going to go for Dom Dwyer. I'm not going to go into, obviously, we know he's had a poor few years. He's been, at times he's been dreadful. I've been a big critic of his. I feel like he doesn't learn from his mistakes a lot of the time. But I've really felt this year with the weapons that he had at his disposal, and especially considering it's the last year of his contract, he's on a big contract. He's not going to get that sort of money anywhere else on his current form. I genuinely thought I wrote an article for the English Lion on it way back at the start of the season. I genuinely felt like he'd come into the season with fire in his belly, determined to prove people wrong. Now he's come in with fire in his belly, but he's just taking it out on whoever stood next to him, pretty much. So yeah, his performances have really disappointed me, and I'm probably being overly critical, but that surprised me, to be honest. I genuinely thought this would be his year, and it hasn't been so far. So hopefully it changes, but I'm not hopeful, to be honest.
Yeah, some interesting points there. Going back to Pereira, obviously, came in high calibers, played Europa League for Krasnodar. Obviously, everyone was waiting for the assists, waiting for the goals. I think getting that monkey off his back, scoring, was key. But looking back on the Miami game when it was 0-0 early on in the first half, he was winning the ball high up the pitch. And they've been playing Cash Mueller in for a 1-1 with Luis Robles. And he's been steady. He's been steady. It'll be interesting to see how he does going forward. Now, I want to move on to, now we've obviously watched the 3 games unfold. We're into the tournament now, approaching the halfway stage. Now, this was discussed a lot heading into the tournament about home field advantage. Would it be home field advantage? No, because there's no fans. We're not at Exploria Stadium. But we are in our home market. We've not flown from the Pacific Northwest. We've not come in from Canada. I want to start with you, Gavin. Do you think there has been, now we've watched 3 games in, some form of advantage getting acclimatized to the bubble earlier than other teams?
I personally do think so. And actually, I did the pre-match press conference with I asked a question of Chris Mueller about this. I said, do you think being in the bubble so early and having the weather, being used to the weather, is an advantage for you guys? And, you know, he did the old, no, I don't think it's an advantage, but I think it has been an advantage. We've been used to the humidity, to the heat for so long, for 5 years as a club. Some of these players, 2 to 3 years. And then we have like we have a South American core. They're used to the heat from obviously growing up in South America. And so I think it has been an advantage for us. And being in the bubble for a long time, yes, I think we had a couple teams show up 4 or 5 days before their first match. We showed up 2 weeks before our first match. Obviously, we didn't have to set up flights or anything. We just had to drive up there. So I think it was smart that we went in there. We got all the testing done. We got acclimated, and I think the positive consequences are showing on the pitch.
Awesome, Eddie. Do you think we've had some form of advantage getting in there early to ESPN?
Yeah, I think so. There's some of it is the weather, just being in this climate for a while. Some of it's probably even knowing your family is just a few miles away. I'm sure that's probably mentally helpful. But some of it is our advantage just because of the fact that we're taking the tournament seriously. These clubs didn't need to show up that late. Some of them could have started training earlier. They could have had a game plan for it. Who knows what they were doing. I felt good coming in because I knew that we were going to be as fit or more fit than any other club based on what we already had going on, based on what you saw, based on what I knew, etc. So I think, yes, some advantage. I do think the league is trying to do as much as they can. They're whining about 9 a.m. games, 10:30 games, 8 o'clock games where they handed out shades, and like sunblock and like Main Street before the matches. And I don't want to hear it. It's never been
sympathy for us in previous years.
Yeah, it's never been anything that's worn. Training on every day at 9. I've seen them after training and they're just drenched. They talked about last year how they'd lose 7 pounds a week or something, and then it'd be adding and subtracting. That's a disadvantage. So I think, it's advantage in the sense that none of them they're here for a longer period, right? So it's wearing on them a little more.
Yeah.
But some of them were ill prepared and weren't taking it seriously. So whatever.
I've got to admit, when, going back to last week or whenever it was, Josie Altidore and Frank de Boer kind of scapegoating those 9 a.m. kickoffs. Yes, Orlando haven't played one. We've played all of ours in the evening at 8 p.m. local time, but you get on with it, I'm not buying that at all. It's a complete excuse.
Yeah.
Every team's playing in the bubble, playing, under these circumstances. They sounded butthurt to me.
You got 0 goals in 3 games. It doesn't matter.
Says it all.
Absolutely. What about you, Dan? What do you think? Having watched the 3 games unfold, do you think that we've had some form of advantage being at home in our own market?
Yeah, I think possibly. I mean, I think I agree with what Eddie said in terms of the heat. And I think this has been an ongoing theme for Orlando for a while. It's always kind of baffled me that we don't have an indoor training facility, because you kind of train in it throughout the week. You're losing all that weight and you actually go into the game more tired, whereas a team comes down from the Northwest or wherever, or Canada, and it's like they haven't been training in that all week, so they're probably a little bit fresher. But I think in terms of the camaraderie of the team, I remember we've seen a lot of videos and stuff on social media of them dancing around and jumping, and it's great to see. I think getting there so early, particularly with the amount of new signings we have, who a lot of which have come from outside of the league, so they're getting used to kind of a new country, a new league, new teammates. I think being in an enclosed environment, and this is coming from somebody who used to work on a cruise ship, that's when you really get to know people, because you're in each other's pockets all day, and you develop relationships develop a lot quicker. And I think Orlando's getting there early, spending that time together before the game started, I think will have given them a slight edge, definitely.
One thing that's always interesting to me, obviously, locker rooms worldwide, have different nationalities, different languages. Always with Orlando City and MLS in particular, you've got the English-speaking guys, you've got the Spanish-speaking guys. I think you make a good point there. Any team that's a successful team shows the right signals. You can make anything look pretty on social media with them running hard on the beach, or laughing when the initiation song and stuff like that. But I think that's a really good point, because the squad does look together. For me, one of my favourite moments is not a goal or it's not a Galese save, one of my favourite moments from the group stage so far is seeing Oscar Pareja in the hydration break with the tactics board, all the players dialed in, listening to him. And for me, that was like, this is change. You know, this is inspiring. It's good to see and it's encouraging. So made some good points there, guys. Now we're running out of time. We've probably got about 8 minutes or so left, but I've got one more question and then I'll throw it out to you guys if you want to discuss anything more. But obviously Dwyer missed the game against Philly, whether you believe he was injured or not. But how much credit do you think our new strength and conditioning coach, Fabian Bazan, deserves for, because we've seen other squads, you know, they've come in with injuries or their players have been dropping like flies. We've managed to keep the majority of the squad, and I'm hoping Junior Urso's fit for the knockout stage, but we've kept most of our guys fit and healthy. Do you think that's big? And I'll throw that one to any of you who wants to answer first.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. That's what I was talking about earlier regarding the home field advantage. You don't want to take away from how the team prepared, the fact that they instilled from the top down that we're taking this seriously, and they prepared not just tactically, right? Because the team came out smooth, I thought, for the most part, right? But also fit, aggressive. We came out with high presses, right? A lot of teams who press are not engaging in high press because of the climate, and just the fact that we're here is kind of downplaying the work that they've put in and the results that we're seeing. I think it's a direct result of them being cognizant of it, right, and them doing a good job. And Dallas didn't have a history of slumping down in these summer months like we did, and when it gets, you know, the temperatures are similar over there. So I definitely think they deserve some credit.
Awesome. Gavin, have you been impressed by kind of it's the backroom coaching stuff, really? You've been impressed by the job that they're all doing in their own roles so far?
Yeah, 100% across the board with the fitness from Fabian Bazan. What is it called? Bleed Purple, where they did that little segment with his brother who's been helping with the coaching, and you see him talking to some players in Spanish, some players in English, going back to what you were saying with the language thing. I think it's all great in terms of our coaching staff behind Oscar Pareja. And then on your point really quickly about when Pareja was sitting there with the tactics board in the drinks break, three of us here are Arsenal fans, Taylor, me, and Eddie. And just something I saw in the Aston Villa game is when Pepe was coming on, Arteta was trying to talk to Nicolas Pepe and give him instruction. And Nicolas Pepe kind of said, yeah, whatever. And he kind of walked away from him. And you could just see it in the body language. He didn't necessarily read his lips or anything. That's a player that's not tuned in. And then you look at Oscar Pareja, he's on the ground with the tactics board and he has 7 or 8 players sitting in a circle around him. And that just shows you how tuned in we are to Oscar Pareja's tactics, Oscar Pareja as a coach. We have full belief in him. The players do, not just the fans. The players do.
Yeah.
And that certainly spreads around the coaching staff as they've been with Oscar Pareja before as well.
Definitely. It's always a gripe of mine when you see the sub coming on, you know, he's checking his studs, he's checking his boots, and they never look at the manager. I'm like, look at your manager.
Yeah.
He's the one who's sending you out there. It is always a gripe of mine as well. Gavin, Dan, what about you? Have you been impressed with the role of Bazan and the backroom staff so far? You have to be, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all symptomatic of Pareja's attention to detail. Like it's all well and good. I mean, we've seen it before where teams put together star players like, oh, this player matches this player. If those players aren't fit physically, mentally, if the team cohesion's not there, it's not going to work. So, like arriving to Disney 2 weeks before the tournament started, getting the conditioning right, all of it is kind of, and that attention to detail will translate itself to the players. And I mean, Oscar Pareja commands respect anyway because he's achieved things in this league. So that naturally gives him a certain amount of respect. You've got to back that up. And he will have come in and said, right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And you can tell straight away, like you said, with the tactics board, they were all dialed in and listening. Everybody, and you can see it on the field that everybody knows their job. Everyone knows where to go, where to run. One thing that stuck out with me, I think it was in the NYC game, or it might have been the Miami game, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you could hear audibly Pareja telling Tesho to stop pressing at one point. So he pressed up to the halfway line, you could hear him shout, Tesho, stop. Like, and it was like, Tesho instantly looks over his shoulder and is like, right, I'm stopping there. And you could tell he, they've obviously talked about it, like we're going to press, but we're not going to press all the time because it's hot. We need to conserve our energy. And he's took that on board and thought, right, I'm going to stay there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very, very impressed with what I'm seeing so far.
Definitely. I think summing up, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I think speak for all of us when we've been really encouraged by the performances from the squad so far. Philadelphia Union was always going to be our toughest game. It played out that way. I think getting that first ever win over Inter Miami, just everything snowballed after that. And it's fantastic to see. So that's almost our time up, but I want to say a big thank you to our guests for joining us today. We don't know who will be playing in the round of 16, but we do know it will take place this Saturday, just after 8 p.m. US time, obviously just after 1 a.m. in the UK. We'll keep our eyes peeled as to who we'll be facing, but it's looking like it could well be the Montreal Impact, which is a winnable game on paper, and I think the squad will be relishing that if that is the test. But yeah, a couple of minutes left, guys. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if we played Montreal, Toronto ate them up on the right side, and I'd like to see some overloads on the right again. Just got to watch out for the through balls. And Montreal's going to be weird. Henry sets them up differently every match, it seems. So it's going to might be a little bit of a chess match there, tactics wise. And I feel comfortable having Oscar at the helm and his whiteboard.
Definitely. All right,
yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So so that's almost our time up. I'm going to sign off before I get cut off here. But thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Yeah. Vamos Orlando, and let's do it. I think the final thought, I think I heard this on commentary, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Oscar Pareja's birthday is on the day of the final, August 11th. So
wow. It's written in the stars.
Really quickly, if results go our way, it would be us versus Montreal in the next game. And then if we win that and the other team win their game in the quarterfinals, it could be Minnesota, which would be an Inchy versus Pareja quarterfinal, which would be really interesting to watch. So
Inchy's last match for Orlando City was against Oscar Pareja.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could well see it. All right then, guys. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, and make sure to follow these guys. You know who they are from OC Twitter. And Vamos Orlando. See you later.
See you later, guys.